the S650 Mustang versus the S550. Let me tell you the real differences after owning both. So, spoiler alert, they're very similar. But there are some nuanced things that make the S650 particularly good over the S550. So, what are they? First things first, the S650 here, this is my 2024 Performance Pack S650, and I am coming from an S550 Performance Pack 10-speed. This one's a manual. The thing that you will notice immediately, and do not let anybody on the internet tell you otherwise, is the handling characteristics of the car. The steering feel is still very, like, it's better than the S550, but it's not something to particularly rant and rave about. The S650, however, when it comes to the turn-in and the handling characteristics, it's a lot less boaty than the S550. Now, I do have MagneRide on this car, which definitely helps to tighten up the suspension, and I do recommend, if you're getting one of these Mustangs, to get MagneRide. It just adds to the experience that much more, and it just makes it way more of a tighter ride, and it's still very livable. When it's in normal mode, you're not gonna, the suspension won't be too jarring, and it will be very tight and stiff when you want it to, but chill when you want it to as well. So that's the first thing that I will absolutely say is much improved over the S550, is just the fact that it turns in faster. The handling is way better. I would honestly say it's maybe 40% better. So it's substantial. And when you, let's say you're going for a spirited drive and you're merging on the highway, when you take that corner, you'll be able to carry much, much higher speeds than the S550. And the S550 stock out the box, even with the Performance Pack, felt a little boaty. Yes, it was more athletic than, say, a Challenger, but it still had this kind of wafting over bumps kind of vibe, and the chassis didn't feel as tight as this did. And that's what immediately drew me to this car. This car honestly handles and turns in more like a European car than actually an American car, which is something I actually like about it. And to really dial in my S550 Mustang, I did lowering springs, and that was pretty much it. And I improved it a bit, but it was still a little less to be desired. Now on this Mustang, one thing I told myself, because I went overboard on my S550 Mustang. I did a ton of different things to it. I ended up trying multiple different springs because it was my first Mustang and I wanted to really find that perfect setup. Whereas now with this S650, I know exactly what to do. So I'm going to try and help to spare you the trial and error that I went through with the S550. So even stock out the box handles very well. You honestly don't need to do too much. As you guys have seen from other videos, I've done sway bars, BMR cradle, lockout kit, and a diff bushing, which I don't recommend you do. NVH, all that stuff, not much of a point. Also, the sway bars with the end links, don't get the end links, leave the stock ones in, they'll be creaking. But everything all together, this car handles really well. And it took it up from, if S550 is here, S650 is here, and now it's here. Like, it handles incredibly well. Now, going on to the differences. Obviously, aside from the exterior and the interior, honestly, this interior took a while to grow on me because as a Mustang guy, I've always loved the double haunches in the interior. It's just a signature look. It looks aggressive, very muscular, and I honestly feel they could have done that in this S650. If they just took the screen and integrated it a bit more into the dash itself, you probably could have kept the double haunches, but over time, the screens are actually really nice. They provide a ton of good info. Like, for example, let's take a look. So one of the big things that sway people to get an S650 is the technology in this car. So there is a ton of cool things that this car can do that the S550 didn't necessarily show or do. And what I mean by show, like, let's go, for example, right? If we go to track apps here, check out all these. So you have the drift brake, which is cool, bit of a gimmick. Haven't really tried it. It's a rear-wheel drive car with almost 500 horsepower. It's easy to drift it if you want. You have rev matching, your launch control. Then if you had a S550 with the digital cluster, you did have shift lights, which these are cool. These kind of show up in different modes. They'll show up here, and then in track mode, they'll go right across. And there's different modes. You got track, drag, which is kind of like a flashing red light. And then the tachometer, which honestly, it just kind of blinks there. As you can see the blue line there. Then track, it tweaks it. So then you can also get a tone. You can change, and that is not the red line, by the way. It goes up to 7,500, so it'll flash a bit beforehand, but you can't go any higher. Then another thing too, you have your brake performance, which I can't remember if these were in the S550. They might have been, they might have not. But then they also have these, which is really cool. Your auxiliary gauges, they're completely customizable. If you go here, you can tweak them, engine oil, inlet air temperature, vacuum, all these cool things, accelerometer, tons of different customization aspects. Then you can tweak the layout of them if you want more of a clean look or more of different gauge looks. Then you have your custom modes, which is cool, the cluster themes. One thing to be cautious with this car, and it does piss me off a lot, is yes, there's a lot of over-the-air updates and it's cool, but it completely tweaks all your settings. It's annoying. You got to reset your shift lights, your launch settings, your colors, all that crap. I don't know. It's stupid, to be honest, but they're improving it. Another thing is you got all these different options for your ambient lighting, which is pretty cool, and your gauge themes. Then to take a look here, they did a really good job with this system. Like sport mode, the graphics are cool, feels very video game-like, and the gauges look pretty aesthetic in my opinion. Track looks really good. And oh yeah, shocker, fuel level low. Then look at that, looks nice. Then the custom modes, I set mine to comm screen, which looks very missile-like, so I kind of dig it. Looks like a lock-on thing. I don't know. Looks very cool. It's clean. Tells you all your information. Very clear and concise. So that's a big step up, in my opinion, over the S550. Another thing, too, is the overall materials of the car feel a bit more premium. It's still an American car. They're still gonna be plastics, but they did a good job at making the subtle differences noticeable. One thing to be cautious of is the screens. Sometimes they can be fast, sometimes they're slow as hell. So that's something to be cautious of. If you are in the market for one of these, it's honestly not a big deal. You just gotta be a little patient. It's a nice exercise of patience. But so I've talked about the differences so far, this handling, obviously the exterior and the interior. Let's talk about sound. So stock, these actually, I find that they're a bit deeper than the S550 was. And it's actually interesting. So with the S550, if you don't know, when you put an X pipe on the S550, it dynoed more than with an H pipe. These cars are different though. You put an H pipe on the car and it dynos more than if you put an X pipe, which shows that something's different with this Gen 4 Coyote. And these have a bit of a deeper, more of a rumble sound. I actually prefer the sound of these over the S550. And honestly, I think the perfect recipe for an exhaust for these S650s, high flow cats, H pipe, probably a resonated H pipe, and a Borla axleback or some kind of like secondary tier axleback. And what I mean by that is like, yes, there's Corsa Extreme, Corsa Sport, go with the Corsa Sport. Borla Attack, Borla S-Type, go with the Borla S-Type. Because with the headers, it'll be super duper loud. So you don't want the craziest setup. Loud isn't always better, but loud but sounds good is the move. Then there's the overall performance. So S550, 460 horsepower from the Gen 3 Coyote, and this one 486 if you get the active exhaust. So 26 more horsepower and basically the same torque figures. It does feel faster, just not that much faster. You just notice a bit more top end on this. It has way better throttle response though than the S550. And the car feels just a tad faster. But this is more like, to say this is an all new generation, kind of, yeah, it looks like it, but underneath, it's like an S550.2. And that's not a bad thing. The S550 was a fantastic car, and I think the S650 on a lot of fronts improved what the S550 needed to be. The S650 has brought it up to modern standards. Yes, the Gen 4 Coyote makes more horsepower, so it's that much better. The aftermarket has proven to really come through with these cars with the Whipples and everything in these kits that Ford sells out the box with a warranty. That warranty is very nuanced though, if you know. But I'm really happy with this car. I think that if you're in the market for a Mustang and you can get a crazy deal on an S550, yeah, jump on it. But if you can also get a good deal on the S650, I think the S650, in my opinion, is the better car. It handles better, it has better dynamics, there's better performance out the box, and if you're gonna leave it stock, get the S650. And do you really need the Dark Horse? Dark Horse looks sick. Don't let anyone tell you that it's not like a good car. It's an amazing car. If you get that handling pack car, it's awesome. The Tremec is awesome. It's just a bit overpriced, but I honestly think if you get a GT with the performance package and Magna Ride, you can probably get that for at least 15 grand cheaper than a Dark Horse with a non-handling pack, and that's Canadian. So weigh your options. So that's my take on the S550 versus the S650. If you got information from this video, like, comment, subscribe. Till we hit 1,000 subs, we'll catch you in the next one.